Hey guys, RJ here, and I finished watching the season premiere of season 2 of The Expanse on the Sci-Fi Channel just a little bit ago, and there's really only one set of words that can sum up my entire reaction to those two episodes, and that is, holy shit. So guys, before we get into it too far today, I want to go ahead and say that there are spoilers ahead. So if you have not seen episode 1 and 2 of Sci-Fi Original The Expanse Season 2, which was a 1.5 hour, two-part premiere, then do not watch this review. Go watch episode 1 and 2 of Season 2, come back here afterwards and watch this review. So, after that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. The character development for this show was absolutely fantastic in this first, hour and a half of TV. Honestly, at times, I cannot believe that this show is actually produced by Sci-Fi. As a kid, I grew up having Sci-Fi on in the background because my aunts and my mother were really into it. I don't know why to this day, but point is, I'd sit there and I saw all these shows, and even as a kid, I was like, these are really bad. So pretty much now, Sci-Fi must have new leadership or something, but this show is probably one of the best cable television shows out there right now, especially after this very, very strong premiere in season 2. And so the character development. So you have Joe Miller is now with the crew, and I really like the middle parts of this episode. And, they're sitting around and they're trying to get to know one another. And, Amos and Joe, they've had their differences. They've killed people on both sides and they've hurt the other. And you can see that play out when they get in that little tussle. And I thought it was really funny because, Joe actually thought that he was going to have a chance against this man that looks like a human representation of the Hulk. And so he gets his ass kicked. And then, they eventually come together, they bond. Alex ends up making everyone lasagna, and they're having a good time just sitting down. And this type of thing is like how we connect. We see this, they're sitting down just like a family would in present day, and they're having a meal together. And, it seems really simple, but they acted it out really well, and the script was really good during this point because there was decent dialogue actually going between. We get to see what all these characters actually hold in common, and they're telling the story about the cheese and how Miller locked it up and then somehow it got out overnight, and then everyone had cheese on the belt for a while. And I really like this section because it humanizes each of these characters, especially the ones that we maybe haven't connected with enough yet, maybe like Amos. And there was a lot of stuff in here for him actually, where they, Naomi talks about how she's kind of his keeper, and she, watches over him from afar. And I think that there's definitely some give and take there. I think that there's some feelings that neither of them has kind of committed to or really talked about openly. But in general, I do like how we get he's not normal, because every second in season 1, I was just waiting for him to kill literally everyone in the show and we'd have to start all over. So I do like all of this, and the character development overall for this episode was fantastic. We get to see a lot of things happening on the inner in Earth. I really like the way that they brought a lot of those things out, and we get to see the new fleet admiral, and everyone's playing their political game on Earth in the inner, and they're trying to get stuff started, and a lot of people just aren't buying it right now. So the Mars sends people in, and by the way, I really like the character Roberta. She was brought in, Frankie Montas or whatever, and she does a really good job of portraying this character. That if we had humans on Mars and they were feeling governed by a society, I could see this exact situation actually playing out in the future if we do someday colonize or something. And I like the way that they kind of play this whole thing. They have her where you can see that she has some conflicting emotions, and I'm thinking also that there's because she wants to see terraforming on Mars. She wants to be alive when they finally finish their mission, and we get kind of some more backstory about what happened between the Earth Federation, the Inner, and Mars, and why they're kind of balanced powers now. I feel like I really like the information flow we got from that, and we end up getting a lot more information on Frank as well, Frank Johnson, and we get a lot of backstory for him where he was a lead Federation person, and then he ended up getting a mission called in where pretty much everyone would have opposed it, and he ends up getting blamed for it, but he was told to do it anyway. And I really like the way that they kind of bring everyone together for this attack on the Ring space station, where they finally figured out where they're doing these testing trials, or, where the people that caused all this damage and are trying to start a war, essentially. So they go in with 50 belters and then the Rosinante. And this whole 1.5 hours of The Expanse, I didn't look away for a second. I didn't pause my TV. No, none of that. I was literally glued the entire time, and the ending blew me away. But I'm not talking about that yet. We're saving that for the end because, dear Lord, I can't even talk about it yet. So we'll get there. Just hold on for me. So yeah, we get a lot of development. Naomi and Jim getting together, that was super hot. I really like them as a couple, actually. They have a really good give and take and a lot of good chemistry on set, actually. Like, I find myself believing that I could see these two in real life actually being a couple, which is kind of the whole point of this thing. So yeah, I really like them as a couple. I think some of the Earth stuff needs a little bit of a rework. I don't know. I just don't feel as engaged, and maybe you're not supposed to because of the way that they act. But I just don't feel as engaged with the actors, the acting president and stuff. And by the way, that's the same guy that played Grant in Frontier, which I just reviewed as well. And I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of squabbling going on there, and I know that's what politicians do, etc. But I'd like to see some more. She ends up getting a spy to go around and spy on all the other chancellors and stuff and parts of the parliament, and I like that, but I just feel like they should expand on it. They only show her walking up to these people, but I know that the main draw of the show is in space, so I'm fine with them sticking more on that. I'm just saying when they switch over to the Earth stuff, I'd like to see a little bit more development going on there rather than just, them getting in fights over clearly this is the bad guy here and this is the good guy. So, and Julie Mao's dad, I really liked his acting performance during this. I just wanted to mention that out, where he's like trying to force the president to actually do his thing, where they're working together and they're trying to get him to actually sign on to doing an attack. And I like that. And then let's talk about visuals. Let's get off of character stuff and script because that was amazing this whole episode. I didn't feel any slowdowns. I really like the dialogue for this show. So no complaints there in this episode. I did have some in season 1, by the way. There were times where it got a little slow, but point is they did this episode great. So moving on, visuals. Dear Lord, is this actually a sci-fi show? Like, can someone actually prove it to me that this is a sci-fi show? Because I wouldn't believe you. If you showed me this show with me having no context, I would say, okay, that's either, a Netflix original, an HBO show, maybe Hulu or Amazon or something, but it has to maybe a really, really, really well benefited NBC or CBS show where they have an unlimited budget. But even then, Supergirl, when I've seen episodes of Supergirl and I see the effects going on for those types of shows, I'm barely even drawn to it. So they did a great job. These are really clean effects that they're doing in space. The ship spinning when they're spinning towards, and then Alex finally gears it in and stuff. And yeah, that looked great. The whole battle between the two ships looked absolutely amazing. I really like that whole scene between them where Almost is down in the engine room and trying to get it connected, and you see the sock thing finally clamp, and then he's flying. They do a really good job of these fight scenes where things break in the ship and people have to go fix them, but they draw the tension in both places. He's flying around, about to die and stuff, and you're worrying for him, but then you're also holy crap, the ship's there's bullet holes everywhere, there's no air inside, and they see the bullets flying, Naomi's face when it goes through one of the screens. That was priceless. I really like the visuals for this show. They do such a good job, and I really don't understand how this is a sci-fi show. But yeah, no, the CGI department deserves absolutely every single bit of credit for this. They did a great job. I would not be surprised if this won multiple awards. And on top of that, they do a really good job of visualizing, struggles within the universe. I don't know how else to say that, but they do a really good job of making the right things look dusty and grimy. And, sometimes you walk, you see these shows where everything looks clean and, speckly, but these are places that are dirty. They're in the grid. They don't have a lot of resources. They have to survive. There's a lot of actions within that. And I think they do a really good job of portraying that on screen. Lots of gray tones, lots of dark colors. And I do have some issues with the lighting at times, but that's really just me trying to get screenshots and they make it impossible. But yeah, yeah, no, seriously, the visuals for this show, A plus. Once again, I got to give it to him there. And that kind of brings me into sound, where I really do love the soundtrack for this show. I think they're good at building into like high tension dialogue moments where you're like, you're waiting in suspense, like, oh my god, is he gonna connect the tube correctly, or is he gonna get sucked out, or when they first discover that they have the 3 jars of the proto molecule and it's on board the ship and they have to go hide it and stuff, like when he's pulling it out and you hear like the tension building, I thought they were all gonna die. I don't know. This show is really good at building tension and moments, and the music is a huge factor in that. And the opening in general, I loved it since the first season. I'm not as fond of it now. It seems like the more openings I hear, maybe I'm a little bit less fond, or maybe I'm just desensitized because of how many shows I've had to watch lately. I think it's good, but yeah, I do love the sound effects, and the actual sound effects for the guns firing, them being inside of these hallways where the rings going around and stuff. I think it all sounds really good, and I think that's what it would kind of sound like if they were in these spaces that have a lot of open air on the inside. And yeah, I think the sound department does a really good job for this show, and in general, like engine sounds, all of that stuff. They do a solid job. And actually the sounds of the proto molecule, like what you hear them like interfacing with when they all like walk in, like they're drawing their shapes or whatever's going on there. But yeah, when they walk in and you hear the sounds of like the proto molecule interacting with them, or whatever that sound is that they actually output, that's great. I really do like that, because it kind of lets us know, like when it's close and stuff. So yeah, the sound was great. And then I'm trying to think of what else I can't really give any bad marks for this episode. So let's just go ahead and talk about the biggest things that happened for the spoilers here. That ending. Dear Lord, that is not what I expected. This whole time we are supposed to be getting more of a connection to Joe Miller. He's kind of like the main character that originally went off to find May, and now like I'm very confused. Is he crazy? Is that like the whole thing here? Because him and Jim and Naomi, or Joe and Naomi, like sit down and have a talk, and he says, I never knew her, and I just went after her, and she comes to me at night and tells me, like, come with me, etc. And I'm just very confused. I thought there was a giant connection, like tying these two characters together, and then he just openly tells her, like, nope, I don't know anything about her. And he says, I think we were meant to be together. And I don't know. I'm just getting the crazy fact. Maybe there is something there, and maybe the proto molecule has something to do with it. Maybe it's like calling out to him. Because I kind of I'd hate to see them ruin his character, because so far he plays a very good gray line. You don't know which side of the law he's going to fall on at any given point. And he's shown the flexibility to push the rules a little bit further than other characters in the show. So, I really like the ending. It's just, I don't want them to like push his character into a corner. I really like the way that he can move throughout the show between multiple different factions, and that's something that they should definitely keep. So moving on from there, the other big things, they found the proto molecule on the ship. That's hidden. That's clearly going to be a plot device later on. I don't even know if that'll be this season or down the road, but they put it there so they can develop a cure, basically a vaccine down the line if possible. And then going over probably what was the biggest revelation we've had in the Expanse thus far is we find out the proto molecule was actually sent to our solar system by someone else that we have no idea who it is. And when he's going in and describing everything, and they're saying, you see Frank and you see Jim, and they're standing there and they're like receiving this information. They're like, what in the holy crap is this guy talking about? And once he finishes, and you just see like they immediately like start to realize why he did it. Like, I don't think they agree with it, and I feel like maybe they should have probably shown a little bit more objection from the characters, but in general, they're just standing there like, holy crap, he's probably right. Like, somebody sent this here, so people already know we're here. I don't think that was just lost out in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, he's saying that this is the first time that humanity has confirmed extraterrestrial life. They have sent this pod here with this proto-molecule that he states that was originally intended to take over our solar system, but we don't know. We don't know what the actual objectives of the person that sent it here is, and that's something we'll have to find out later on. But yeah, this is huge. It went from something where like the government's developing this weapon that gets out of control, and it was a little tropey for sci-fi shows. But this could take it to another level, and I really like the direction that they can go. This opens up everything. You still have all these conflicts with Earth and Mars, which is the big war, that everyone's trying to avoid. You have the problems with the Belters, who are caught between both of these people, not getting enough resources. And then on top of that, you have this huge overarching circle now where there's a bigger enemy. There's something else that we have to focus on, and we aren't yet. So, yeah. And then let's talk about the preview for next week, because, dear Lord, and I've been tricked in the past. I doubt all of these things are actually happening next week. I feel like The Expanse is one of those shows that shows you, happening soon, but it ends up being in episode 8 or 9. So, yeah, I'd hold out a little reservations and stuff, but I think eventually we're going to have to go back to Eros, and we're going to have to see exactly what's going on, because we saw some clips in there, and I'll post a screenshot obviously up, but yeah, like, what is going on in there, right? Like, because the scientists tell us that, it needs to integrate, it could be the next step of humanity and moving on to a next evolution of life cycle. And he talks about, like, humans being able to hibernate and migrate and sleep for, unendless periods. It would basically help us evolve into something greater than we are. And this definitely provides, like, a fictional romanticism that, like, in our minds, we're like, okay, like, are there things that we could actually improve about humanity? And he talks about, like, humans, like, stepping into gaseous planets and being able to walk around just fine, or maybe they can survive extreme heat and gravity and walk through a sun now. He basically tries to say that the effects are limitless, and I think that gives them a really good smorgasbord of, like, where they can take the show. Like, what does it actually end up reacting to? What does it do to humanity? And yeah, I guess we're eventually going to see. I think the mistake here is it's too easy to fall into the trap that they're definitely going to be bad guys. So I wouldn't fall for that just yet. We kind of have to see what happens when they actually go back and they look at Eros and they see exactly what's going on there. So I think there's a lot of stuff still to be determined. I wouldn't get your mindset that it's a bad thing yet. I definitely wouldn't set my mind on it's a good thing either. But yeah, so guys, overall, this was a terrific season opener. Episodes 1 and 2. My final score for this show for these first 2 episodes is a 9.5 out of 10. They did an absolutely amazing job. I was sitting on the edge of my seat quite literally the entire time I was watching this, and I think Sci-Fi has done a really good job of actually doing even better than season 1, which nobody expected them to do. This opener was way more interesting. We have way more character depth going on, and yeah, I love the scenes where they're acting like normal crew members, and then at the end, Jim freaks out and murders the lead scientist, and then walks away. So I don't know. This show has me all sorts of hot and bothered and unraveled, and yeah, I really like where it's going. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. We're trying to get out a ton more videos here in February, and we're really excited about some of the shows we get to cover, which obviously includes The Expanse from here on out, because I was a little worried that we might have to drop this if this first episode was really bad, but I absolutely loved it. Gonna keep watching it, gonna keep reviewing. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel, follow us on social media, like this video if you liked it, comment down below what were your thoughts, tell me your theories. Okay, where are we going from here? There's so much that I need to hear your guys' theories, so let me know down below, and until next time, guys, I'll see you soon.